The delay. I've worked night security at Fairhaven Commons for 6 years, and I want to say up front that I'm not the kind of person who sees things. I don't believe in ghosts. I think most haunted stories have a boring explanation if you look hard enough. Bad wiring, old pipes, somebody's imagination doing overtime at 3 a.m. I'm telling you that because I need you to understand that I looked for the boring explanation first. I looked for weeks. The mall closes at 9. By 9:40 the last stragglers are gone, the gates are down, and it's just me. 62 dark storefronts, and 11 cameras feeding into a bank of monitors in a windowless room behind the food court. I do a walk every hour, otherwise I sit and watch the feeds and drink bad coffee and wait for sunrise. It's the kind of job where nothing happens for years and then you tell people about the one time it did, over and over, for the rest of your life. It started on a Tuesday in October. I was watching Camera 4, which covers the long stretch of corridor outside the old anchor store that's been empty since the department store chain folded. I picked up my coffee, and on the monitor, I watched myself pick up my coffee. Except the me on screen had already set it back down by the time I actually lifted the cup. I remember frowning at it and thinking the feed had hiccuped, the way it does sometimes when the building's ancient router gets overloaded. I made a note in the log, Cam 4 minor desync, will report to maintenance, and didn't think much more about it. By Thursday, it was worse. Camera 4 again. I walked into frame at 2:14 a.m. according to my watch. The timestamp on the monitor read 2:14, 07. 7 seconds isn't a lot. 7 seconds is nothing really if you're not paying attention. But I was paying attention because it's my job to pay attention. And 7 seconds of drift on a fixed IP camera on a closed network doesn't happen without a reason. I called our contracted IT guy, a bored kid named Marcus who handles 4 properties and clearly wishes he handled 0. He remoted in, ran his diagnostics, told me the timestamp sync was fine. The frame rate was fine. Everything was fine. Probably your eyes playing tricks this late, he said, and I let him think that, because what else was I going to say? The following week, the drift wasn't consistent anymore. Sometimes the feed ran 7, 8 seconds ahead of real time. I'd see myself do something before I did it. Other nights it lagged behind, same as before. I started testing it on purpose, which I know now was a mistake, though I couldn't tell you why it felt like one at the time. Just a cold, specific feeling, like knocking on a door you already know you shouldn't open. I'd stand in the corridor under camera 4, raise my hand, and watch the monitor. Sometimes my screen hand went up first. Once, it didn't go up at all. I stood there for almost 30 seconds with my arm raised like an idiot, watching my own recorded self just standing there, arms at its sides, watching something I couldn't see. Another time, a half second before the screen caught up with me, the screen me's eyes flicked toward the lens. Not toward me, not toward the hallway, just toward the little black dot of the camera itself, the way you glance at a door when you think someone's about to knock. I told myself, dropped frames, buffer issue. I wrote it all down in the log because that's what you do. You document things. And documentation makes the world feel like it still has edges. The night everything changed was a Saturday. Quiet, cold, the kind of shift where the vending machines hum louder than usual because there's nothing else to listen to. I was on my midnight walk, corridor outside the dead anchor store, when I heard, faintly, over my radio, which only picks up the feed from Camera 4's built-in mic, a cheap add-on nobody at corporate wanted to pay extra for. The sound of the anchor store's roll-down gate, rattling, like somebody testing it from the inside. That gate hasn't gone up in 4 years. There's nothing behind it but a concrete shell and some pigeon droppings. I've been in there for building inspections. I stood in the corridor, in the exact spot the radio said the sound was coming from, and heard nothing. No rattle, no gate. Just the vending machine hum and my own breathing. I went back to the monitor room at a jog, which I am not proud of, and pulled up Camera 4 Live. The timestamp read 12:47:52. My watch read 12:47:41, 11 seconds ahead. And on the screen, in the corridor I'd just been standing in, the anchor store's gate was rattling, shaking on its track like someone on the other side was pulling it, while the version of me on screen stood there, watching it, not moving, not reaching for a radio, doing absolutely nothing while a locked gate shook itself half off its rail. I want to be clear, I was not doing that. I remember what I was doing 11 seconds later, and it wasn't standing still. But the me on the screen was mine. My jacket, my flashlight, the little hitch in my walk from an old knee injury nobody else would notice. It was me. It just wasn't happening at the same time I was living it. Or in the same place, maybe. I don't know anymore what same place means in that hallway. After that night, I stopped testing it on purpose. I started avoiding Camera 4's corridor during my walks, taking the long way around through the food court even though it adds 10 minutes. But avoiding the hallway didn't stop me from watching the monitor, because watching the monitor is the job, and I couldn't make myself request a transfer without sounding like I'd lost it. So I watched. And over the following weeks, I started to understand, not prove, understand the way you understand a shape in the dark before your eyes adjust enough to be sure that the drift wasn't a delay at all. A delay shows you the past, or somehow, impossibly, the future. What I was watching didn't behave like either. Things happened on that screen that never happened in my mall at all. A shape passing the flower kiosk we tore out 2 summers ago. A directory sign for a store I'd never heard of, gone by the time I froze the frame and looked again. Once, briefly, a second security guard walking the corridor, in a uniform close enough to mine that I only noticed the difference in the patch on the shoulder. Wrong color, wrong shape, before he turned down toward the anchor store, and the frame cut back to normal. There is no second guard. I work alone. I've always worked alone. I've started thinking of it less as my mall showing me something out of time, and more like there are 2 malls, laid one over the other, close enough that most nights you'd never know, and that camera is a scene where they show through into each other. I don't know why Camera 4. I don't know why now, after 6 years. I don't know what's on the other side of that anchor store gate in the version of the mall the seam is showing me. And some nights I think I'd rather die than find out. And other nights, near dawn, tired enough that the fear goes thin and strange, I think about walking down there and testing the gate myself, just to see if it moves. Last night, for the first time, the timestamp wasn't ahead or behind at all. It matched my watch exactly, second for second, the whole shift, which should have been a relief, and wasn't. Because at 3:58 a.m., the me on the screen looked directly into the lens, smiled in a way I have never once smiled at that camera in 6 years of shifts, and mouthed something I couldn't read before the feed cut to static for 4 seconds and came back showing an empty corridor, timestamp perfectly, patiently in sync.